my strategy for teaching this, there are different ways of teaching this, but here's the approach that I take, which is firstly, pay attention to your current orgasm and ejaculation that happen almost simultaneously. Like really try and slow down as much as you can and pay attention to as many sensations as you can notice when you experience your ejaculation. What you will find, hopefully, if you're paying close attention, is that your experience of orgasm, which is the pleasurable sensations, the pulsations in the pelvic floor, the kind of euphoric sensation of orgasm that comes, from the psychological experience of orgasm, that happens just before your ejaculation happens. So very often the squeezing, the pulsing, the orgasmic rhythmic pulsing that happens in the body tends to happen just before the ejaculation happens, right afterwards. So they happen very close to each other. But if you really slow down and pay attention, you will notice that there's like a few milliseconds between the orgasm happening and the ejaculation happening. Because we don't really pay attention a lot of the time, we kind of think they're happening concurrently at the same time. And there's overlap there, but you should be able to notice that the orgasm happens, the ejaculation comes from the orgasm. So once you've kind of identified that, the next step then is to essentially slow down even more so that you can start to prolong the distance between those two things. That's kind of the strategy, right? And so the way that I would teach men how to do this is by thinking of your levels of arousal from 0 to 10. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and ejaculation is like a 9.8 out of 10, right? And so over the time that you spend doing a self-pleasure practice, that I'll call it, so a masturbation practice. Some people call this edging. Some people call this surfing. We're just going to scale up through those levels of arousal. So spend a few minutes at a level 6 out of 10, about halfway up your levels of arousal, again, with ejaculation kind of being right at the top, and then move up, with a bit more stimulation, a bit more excitement, up to a level 7. Try and stay at level 7 for a few minutes, and then move up to a level 8. Try and stay at level 8 for a few minutes. Then get to level 9, and you might be getting closer to ejaculation as you get to 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. As you get closer and closer to 9.8, which is this ejaculatory inevitability, where if you hit that point, ejaculation is going to happen. Yep. My suggestion is really spend as much time as you can, get really familiar with what it's like to be in the range of arousal from about an 8 to a 9.5. That's your heightened state of arousal. That's kind of like your peak experience of arousal. And if you kind of map it on a graph, it's at the top end of the graph, and ejaculation would be this little transient peak where you go up to a 10 and then come back down very rapidly afterwards. So if you can spend time getting familiar with what it's like to be in that heightened state of arousal, what we might call an orgasmic zone or an orgasmic range, where you kind of think, instead of orgasm being this peak transient experience that happens very briefly, and then after that you can't get aroused for a little while after that because of the refractory period, rather than kind of thinking about orgasm and ejaculation that way, we think of orgasm as this state that we can be in from that range of 8 to 9.5, where everything that we experience in that state is heightened arousal, is highly pleasurable, is orgasmic. Then and that isn't something that is easy to do. On the first time, you might not be able to do it, and you might go straight into ejaculation, because a lot of guys, we're not familiar with that heightened state of arousal. We don't spend a lot of time there. We typically kind of blast through it and go straight into an ejaculation.
Yeah.
But if you can slow down by slowing your breathing down, by relaxing, by slowing your touch down, the stimulation down, by incorporating other areas of your body so that you're not hyper fixated on just stimulating your genitals, you can prolong that state. And then once you're there, here's where a little practice comes in, which I'll call a flutter orgasm. So F-L-U-T-T-E-R, to flutter. And the practice here is get as close as you can after spending time in that heightened state of arousal, again, slowly building up. So you've got a lot of this sexual charge, a lot of pleasure moving through your body. When you get closer and closer to that 9.8, that point of ejaculation inevitability, the point of no return, stop just before there and take the stimulation away. So if you're using your hands or a toy, whatever it is, take the stimulation away and rhythmically squeeze voluntarily your pubococcygeal muscle. So that's the PC muscle that is oftentimes isolated in your Kegel exercises, for example. It's the muscle that you use to stop yourself from going to the toilet. So if you're urinating, right, if you're going to the toilet to do a pee and you stop the flow of urine, that is the PC muscle that you're using to stop that flow. So when you get to that heightened state of arousal, spend a bit of time there, build all that pleasure, and then stop just before that ejaculation and rhythmically, voluntarily squeeze and contract your PC muscle, flutter it, so to speak, like, squeeze back and forth, rapidly and rhythmically. What you will notice, hopefully, if you're doing this, and you're building yourself up to this, is that the body has what I might like to call like a habitual response. So it'll have the orgasmic response because you're ticking off all these other things that are associated with this orgasm and ejaculation that typically happen when we climax, which is heightened state of arousal, rhythmic contractions of the pelvic floor, like stimulation of the body. And so you can kind of almost trick or hack the body into having an orgasmic response when you voluntarily flutter these PC muscles when you're in that heightened state of arousal. The body goes, I know what to do. And it has this orgasmic response where you kind of have these spasms and orgasmic sensations. But because you, with regards to your nervous system, haven't tipped yourself over into the sympathetic response of ejaculation, you don't have the ejaculation happening at the same time. And so that flutter orgasm for a lot of the guys that I work with tends to be the kind of aha moment, the light bulb moment for them, that they can have these heightened states of orgasmic, kind of pleasurable, spasmodic experiences that don't include an ejaculation. And then because there's no ejaculation, you can decide to keep going if you would like. And very often from there, there's a bunch of protocols that I have in place to start to really heighten those experiences and really start to expand what you can get from those orgasmic contractions and the sensations that are available to you. But that's the kind of process that I'll take guys on to get to that point. And that's a bit of a speed run, of course. There's a lot of practice that's involved in that. And the beauty of the practice is that it's all about pleasure. It's about finding out more about your body, finding out more about what pleasurable sensations you're capable of experiencing, and incorporating that all into that level of arousal so you can keep yourself in that heightened state for a longer period of time. That translates really well into sex with a partner as well, because you can stay in a heightened state of sexual pleasure for a longer period of time with someone else. So that's kind of the process.
I got it. So Cam, how long do you think it takes for someone to train themselves to reach that heightened state and remain in that zone?
If you're doing a regular practice, maybe once or twice a week of 20 minutes self-pleasuring, where you're incorporating all of the breathing and the self-pleasuring, then I reckon you could probably get it down to about a month, maybe 2 months. That's usually how I see it with my clients.
Okay. So with regular practice, they can really get into that zone which you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the first couple of times, it might be unfamiliar territory for you and you might end up ejaculating, and that's fine. That's the beauty of practicing, is that ejaculation is a pleasurable experience. So you ejaculate, so what, at the end of the day. But the intention is to really elongate the amount of time that you spend, prolong the amount of time you spend in that heightened state of arousal. So the intention is kind of take ejaculation off the table and really spend time in that space. So after a couple of times, you get a bit more familiar with it, you can start to expend longer periods of time there.
So that heightened state of arousal is the zone which you call between 8.5 and 9.5. Is that?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, that orgasmic state. Yeah.
Okay. And Cam, what is the benefit of knowing that ejaculation and orgasm are two different processes?
Well, as I kind of mentioned before, one of the reasons that you might like to explore that is, especially in the way that I teach it, it helps you stay in a heightened state of arousal for a longer period of time, which translates into more pleasurable, longer sex. So you can translate that into a more intense sexual experience with a partner. If you're wanting to learn how to have an orgasm that doesn't include an ejaculation, then once you've kind of got that down, you can have multiple orgasms when you're with another person. So you can choose when you want to ejaculate. You can kind of get to the point where, and this is my own personal experience, you can get to the point where, I might want to ejaculate today, I might not. Is my partner feeling satisfied? How long do we want to have sex for? A lot of those questions now become things that we can actively decide to do because we've got the practices in place, and I've got the skills and the capacity to be able to make those decisions. Beyond that as well, one of the things that a lot of men don't seem to realize is that women and our partners like seeing us experiencing pleasure. They like seeing us enjoy ourselves. And so if we're able to have pleasurable, heightened orgasmic experiences, a lot of our partners tend to also get pleasure from that in the same way that we like seeing our partners orgasm. And I'm an advocate for making sure our partners experiencing pleasure and making sure that our partners enjoying themselves in much the same way that we get a lot of enjoyment and pleasure from seeing that in them and experiencing that with them. Our partners also feel the same way. So the more we're able to have those orgasmic experiences and to experience pleasure, the more they're going to enjoy and experience pleasure as well.